Today we have a 99 Dodge in for an installation of a DF-220-5G. This installation video will be applicable for 98.5 to 2004 DF-165-5G and DF-220-5G. First off, we're going to start with an unboxing. One thing to note, guys, it shows time-sensitive material in here. That's going to be your warranty card, so make sure you get that filled out and sent in to us. You also can register that online at our website. Once you open the box, directly on top is going to be the installation instructions. Inside this will be that green warranty card I was just speaking of for your warranty registration. You'll have your Airdog wiring harness, your 14-foot section of 1/2-inch hose, your 7-foot section of 5/8 hose, your 5/8 draw straw, you'll have your sub-assembly box. Included in this is going to be your cradle bracket as well as all the fittings and needed installation parts, your sandwich plates, and the pump assembly itself. So now we're going to open up this sub-assembly kit. Again, this will have like your cradle bracket, your mounting hardware and fittings, but we'll go through them separately here. You're going to have your filler neck return tee, as well as the hose clamps needed to install that. All the fittings in your fitting bag needed to install the pump. Your hardware kit for your mounting bracketry, your spacer block, the cradle bracket itself, zip ties to zip tie up any wiring from the wiring harness or clean routing of the hose, and a customer service O-ring kit. So now that we've done the unboxing of our sub-assembly kit, we got the supplied hardware kit kind of laid out here. We're going to mount the pump and the cradle bracket itself. Note, depending on if you're the inside or outside of the frame rail, you may have to orient it in the bracket differently. We're going to take our supplied 1/4 bolts. We'll start by just finger tightening all the hardware. So as you'll notice, there's a little bit of slot here on your cradle bracket, so you can kind of shift it one way or the other as needed. Make sure that your fuel filter and water separator are clear. We're just going to hug the fuel filter side a little tight to verify fitment before final tighten. So we made sure we have a nice gap here. So we'll go ahead and get our 3/16 Allen wrench, 7/16 socket, and get these tightened up. So now we have the pump mounted in the cradle bracket. We're going to go ahead and install the inlet, outlet, and return fitting. These are going to be in your fitting bag that was in your sub-assembly kit. On this particular application, being a 220, it's going to have an AN style suction fitting and a 3/4 UNF outlet fitting. If this would be a 165 5G, you would have 2 of these style fittings. The inlet and outlet would both be this style, and then you'll have your 7/16 UNF return fitting. So we're going to go ahead and get these plugs threaded out of here and get these threaded in. The 3/4 UNF is going to be a 7/8 wrench. The 7/16 UNF is going to be a 9/16 wrench. Your AN suction fitting will be a 15/16 wrench. So after we got the truck in, we're going to test fit the brackets. We did notice on this particular application, being a short bed, the inside of the frame rail is too tight to mount the pump. So we actually flipped it around in our cradle bracket, and we're going to mock up fitment on the outside of the frame rail. It's looking like we're going to hit this 4 sets here, and we'll just make sure everything clears up nice and tight to the bottom of the cab. Try to have the pump hang, as high as possible. We don't want to, we want to protect it as much as we can. So it's looking like these are going to be our 4. So we'll get these sandwich plates back off, get the cradle bracket mounted to it, and final mount the pump. This would be a good time to note as we are mounting this on the outside of the frame rail. On the new 5G pumps, these serial tags are held on by little machine screws. So you can take a 5/64 Allen wrench, and we can actually move this to the correct side of the pump, so you'll be able to see the serial tag after it's mounted. So we're back underneath the truck after we've determined the height that we need to mount the pump as well as mounted the serial tag. We're going to get the plate keyed back up into the other sandwich plate. Again, this is an extended cab short bed truck. There a little bit of space constraints. Full disclosure, I did open up the bolt holes in the cradle bracket itself so we could pull it down just a little bit so we could clear this body seam here. Unfortunately, it's kind of necessary on this application, it's looking like, but it'll allow for a nice clean installation once done. On this particular application, there is kind of a cross member that's holding the fuel tank up, as well as the two tank straps. So we're going to begin by taking these 4 bolts out to loosen that cross member, and then we'll move on to our tank straps. So now that we've got that cross member removed, we're going to also start by pulling the filler necks. So there's 2 hose clamps. You have your vent and your actual filler neck. We're going to loosen those up, get those disconnected. We're going to reach up and try to get the connections on top of the tank before we drop it. We may have to drop it a little bit for clearance, but there will be 2 lines on top of the tank as well. So it's a little tough to show you in the truck disconnecting these fuel lines, but it will be oriented like this. But you'll be pressing these 2 tabs on either side and removing the hose. Also with the 5/16, be careful with this 5/16. This is the factory return. You do keep this. It's a little bit smaller, so it's easier to break, so be careful. And then obviously your electrical connector, there'll be a red slide lock. You'll slide lock it over, pinch it, and remove it. And then we'll get back up in the truck and show you kind of how the fuel tank straps work. So on the tank strap, on one side there's going to be a hole with a stud and a nut. On the other side it's going to kind of be a T. If you look up in these cross members, it kind of keys in here. So we'll kind of show you here. You'll rock it out up into the big groove and it locks back standardly. So this is how it's going to be when you're removing it. You're going to need to pull it towards the inside of the truck, rock it back to release. So now we're going to begin by removing the fuel module. We're going to kind of try to determine where a good place is for our 5/8 draw straw. So we're going to get this taken off, get it drained, and like I said, mount that draw straw. So get this lock ring off. And then be careful because there may be some stuff on top of the module. This truck is exceptionally clean, so not as big a deal, but we'll let this drain, we'll get it pulled out, and we'll get everything cleaned up and ready for the draw straw. So in your supplied fitting bag, there's going to be an AN adapter. So it's going to be a 3/4 16 O-ring boss to a -10. We went ahead and threaded it in here to see where all this lays out good. And we also got our -10 to 5/8 hose barb. It's looking like right here is going to be the best spot after we've did some measuring in the truck and everything. So we're going to take a step bit, we're going to drill our hole. Another little tip for you guys, most of you guys in your garage are going to have a spray paint can or brake cleaner or something. Use the cup underneath to catch any shavings that may go into the tank, so you don't have any issues of the pump sucking up plastic later on. So now we're going to determine the length that we need to cut the draw straw. So what I like to do is put the draw straw in the tank, make a mark, and we're going to measure from here to here, and that's how much we're going to need to take off the bottom. One thing you guys need to note is this tank is laying flat on the floor with no fuel in it. When it's in the truck hanging by the tank straps with just a little bit of fuel, it's going to belly a little bit. So make sure you guys give yourself 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch of extra length. So once everything is settled, you don't have any quarter tank issues. It's pulling directly from the bottom of the tank. So we went ahead and we measured from our line that we just made to the top of the bulkhead, and we took that off the bottom. And like I said, we gave ourselves about 3/16 to 1/4 of an inch of play. So when the tank's bellies, we don't have any quarter tank issues. We're going to drill basically cross holes 90 degrees from each other. What that's going to do is once we cut it, it'll make a crown shape so it can't suck flat to the bottom of the tank. We'll demonstrate for you here. So we'll go ahead and drill through. We'll turn it. And then we'll actually step it up to a bigger hole size before we cut it. So now we'll cut the remaining little sections after we made those cross holes. Then we're going to take a file and clean up any burrs and make these a little deeper. Like I said, this is just to confirm if it gets to the bottom of the tank, it can't suck flat and restrict your fuel. So now that we've cleaned up our shavings and burrs, we're going to install it in the tank. You're going to have a flat washer and a lock washer, and then a nut. So we'll go ahead and get these started up the straw here, and we'll begin to tighten it up. So now that we got our draw straw tightened and installed, we're going to go ahead and reinstall the module. We have our seal ring. We'll go ahead and seat in there. And make sure you get your sending unit arm lined up. Now remember, when you guys removed this, all your fittings were facing towards the frame rail, towards your lines. That's important. There's an arrow on top of the module that'll line up in these two lines. We'll show you here in a second. That is so that your fuel arm is located properly, so you're getting proper fuel level readings. So we got that where it needs to be. We'll put the lock ring on it now. So now that we've done our draw straw, the factory outlet is going to no longer be utilized with this 220 installation. So we have a vacuum cap for you. So we'll just go ahead and tighten this up to make sure this is all sealed off and no dust or anything can get in there. So now again that we have the draw straw installed, we're only going to be using the 5/8 hose for the suction. So we'll just go ahead and press the full 7-foot length onto this hose. We will oil this fitting up, oil the inside of this hose, and get it pressed in. So now that we have the tank reinstalled up into the truck, we routed our 5/8 suction line up. We're going to determine the length that we need to cut this. We're going to use our -10 swivel to complete this line. So I'm going to go ahead and thread it up on here, get a rough idea of the length that's needed, and we'll cut and press this in. So we're going to go ahead and oil this brass swivel fitting up, oil the interior of the hose, and get it pressed in. So now we're going to cut our filler neck to install the 1.5-inch filler neck tee. This will be your return. So from your Airdog back to the filler neck. So now that we've installed our filler neck return tee, we're going to start assembling the return line. You're going to have a 3/8 90 off of the pump itself, and we're going to run it back to a 1/2 inch straight at the filler neck. So we're going to go ahead and oil up our 3/8 90 plastic fitting. And it helps if you're twisting while you're pushing. So we went ahead and zip tied our return line all up nice, routed it with our suction line. So now we're back here at the filler neck tee. We'll determine the length that we need. We'll cut this and we'll press in our 1/2 inch straight quick connect fitting. So now we're under the hood of the truck here. We're going to be making the outlet line of the Airdog to the injection pump. I'm actually going to start in the engine bay and drop the excess hose down. So we're going to remove the 12mm banjo that's on the side of your injection pump itself. It'll be the one more towards the firewall. The larger one is your overflow valve. Leave that alone. So the one closest to the firewall, we're going to remove that to install our WAP-102. So this is the 12mm banjo bolt you will be removing, and you'll be installing the WAP-102. It's going to be the stainless steel fitting. Kind of looks like any other quick connects, but it's a 12mm. Make sure you install the sealing washer. It's going to thread in the same hole. We're going to take a 1/2 inch 90, clip it onto that, and drop the excess hose down to the Airdog pump itself. So we understand it's a little bit tight down there, kind of hard to see. We'll try to put a clip up for you. But again, the banjo bolt closest to the firewall, you're going to remove that and replace it with WAP-102 and sealing washer. So we went ahead and dropped our outlet line of the Airdog down. Again, we started at the injection pump with a 1/2 inch 90. So we dropped it down, zip tied it up nice, and we're gonna figure out what length we need. So we're gonna go ahead and cut our hose, and we'll press it on our 1/2 inch straight and clip it onto the pump. Alrighty, we're gonna begin the installation of the Airdog wiring harness. We went ahead and mounted the relay to the firewall using just a small self tapper. Routing your positive and negative battery cables. We went underneath the fuse box, make it look clean. You're going to have the long drop here. We'll fish this down to the Airdog. This is actually what clips into the pump assembly itself. And you'll have a little bit shorter lead here to a Deutsch connector. Alrighty, so we have our factory 2-pin Deutsch connector. I just unplugged this out of the lift pump itself. That is what the Airdog harness is going to connect to. So, and this will be the trigger circuit of the Airdog harness. So we got that connected. So we'll route this nicely. Be careful of the steering shaft, so we'll zip tie this up nice and clean. So we went ahead and got our Airdog harness connected. We're all plumbed up here. We've got the fuel filters on. We're gonna get this thing primed up. A lot of times on these 220s, we won't even really need to crack the filters loose. On this particular application, since we use the ECM plug, we'll bump the key but don't start it. It'll run for 30 seconds. You'll hear the tone change in the system. We might have to do it twice, but we'll go ahead and get it primed up and get the truck started. So we went ahead and got this truck fired up and primed up. She fought us a little bit. Being a VP, we bled a couple injector lines. But we're going to take it to the gas station, put some fuel in it, and go for a test drive. So we went ahead and got this installation all buttoned up. Again, this was a 220-5G. It's applicable for a 165-5G with a couple small modifications, but basically the same installation. It's pretty rare to see these things this nice anymore, so we do appreciate our friends letting us take, let us put this pump on it, put it in our hands. I've actually been trying to buy this truck for about 5 years now. If you've watched any of our other videos, you can tell that I'm a VP guy, but maybe one day. So, but until then, just a really nice second gen, and it was an honor to work on it.